You've hired a giant engineering company to work on your project, and they're partway through the project and they stop returning your phone calls. Now what do? That's a problem. No matter what you do, it's going to be a little bit messy, but you'd be surprised how often that happens. We get calls here on a fairly regular basis from clients. Their engineer has stopped talking to them, or their land surveyor has stopped talking to them. So what do you do in that situation? I'll try and give you some advice on how to handle that. I want to tell you the story though that inspired this video, because I think it'll help illustrate some of the principles and some of the lessons. So it was about a year ago. We performed about $40,000 worth of work on an industrial facility here, local industrial facility. They needed some land title and survey work, so we went in there and helped them with that. And shortly after we were finished with our work, the entire facility was actually sold. So it went to a new owner. And the new owner hired a giant engineering company to come in and help them work on some improvements to the facility. I'm not going to tell you who the engineering company is. That's not super important, but it was a big multinational engineering company. So we're gonna call them GEF, okay? Giant engineering firm. So we'll call them GEF. So they hired GEF to come in and do some civil engineering design, and then what they were basically doing is they were going to lease out a couple different pieces of this larger industrial facility for some on-site energy supply stuff that they had going on. So now how do I know that? Our work was finished at that point. So how do I know that they hired GEF? So we got a call from the civil engineer, project manager at GEF. And the engineer was out-of-state engineer, and he called and he said, "Hey," he said, "You know, I'm taking over this project for the new owner of this facility. We know you guys have done some work out here." He said, "Hey, you know, I've got surveyors in California, but you know they're really busy and they don't really want to deal with me. You know, would you guys be able to work for us? You know, would you be willing to work for us to wrap up the work on this project?" And we talked to them a little bit, and you know, we were going to have a hard time meeting their schedule, and we told them, you know, we'd rather not get involved. You know, it'd be better if you used your own in-house surveyors. We just, you know, we didn't want to get into a turf war. Surveyors can be finicky like that. We said, you know, if you can, you know, it'd be best if you can get your in-house folks here in California to take care of this for you. But we told them, you know, if for some reason they can't do that, and you can wait, you know, a couple more weeks until we get some things cleared off our plate, you know, we're happy to talk to you, and we can get you a proposal. So we never heard back from them, from the civil engineer. So my assumption is he got his people to take care of some of this surveying work that they needed for the design. That was over a year ago. So a few weeks ago, we get a call from the new owner of the facility, and we don't know him. We've never worked for him. We work for the former owner. But they called us up and they said, "Hey, we're hoping you could help us out. We need some more surveying work out here at this facility. We know you worked for the former owner. You know, would you guys be willing to take on some of this work?" And so we told them, we said, you know, "Hey, you know, we certainly could help you, but we're a little bit confused." I said, "First of all, we're really busy right now." I said, "Second of all, you know, we don't really know who you guys are, and you know, you guys hired GEF a year ago to take care of this work. You know, we're like, it'd really be better if you just went back to GEF and had GEF do this additional work for you. You know, we don't know what they've done out on your facility the last year, and we're going to have to, you know, try and review their work, and you know, we might have to reduce some work, and it's going to cost you guys more money than you need to spend, and you know, we don't like to do that to our clients." And we said, you know, just it'd really be better if you just worked with GEF and their surveyors. And the client said, "Well, you know, we understand that, and we would do that, except GEF is basically non-responsive right now. You know, they haven't talked to us for weeks. They started some other survey work that they haven't finished still, and now we need this other work, and it's urgent, and you know, we can't get these guys to talk to us." So, that was obviously frustrating for the client, for the owner of the industrial facility, and it was frustrating to me that they were in that situation with another licensed professional. So if you're a client, you're in that situation, here's some folks, they own this facility, they're trying to get some work done, their engineer won't call them back. What do you do? What do you do when your giant engineering firm that you hired for your project just doesn't return your phone calls? And it's not the first time we've seen this happen. Just a few months ago, we got a call from another client. He said, I know you guys aren't contracted with me directly, or you're contracted with engineering firm XYZ. He says, but engineering firm XYZ won't return my phone calls. I don't know what's going on with my project. Can you guys let me know what's going on? So this happens occasionally. It's happening a lot right now because everybody's super busy. So what can you do in that situation? Well, a lot of clients in that situation realize they need to make a switch. So they need to get a different consultant on board because they can't get their project across the finish line with the giant engineering firm that they hired. But it's not always easy to do that. That transfer can be awkward. To go back to that story and give you an example of that, so we ended up getting some of the drawings for the work that this other engineering company had done at this industrial facility, because we were trying to see if we could step in and help the client get this thing wrapped up. And I noticed when we were reviewing one of the survey maps they prepared that they had shown my survey monuments with my license number in several locations where they hadn't been set. We'd never set them there. And so we contacted the client, and the potential client said, hey, we just want to let you know you've got an issue with this work product that these guys have prepared, and they're getting ready to file these documents with the local government agency, and there's very clearly mistakes on here. And FYI, they need to not be showing my monument set where it was never set, because that's an issue for me. And so it's just awkward, right? It's just awkward to try and make that switch. So what can you do if you have to make that switch, if there's no way around it? So I want to give you 4 things you want to make sure that you do if you have to switch to a new survey firm kind of in the middle of a project. Okay, so the very first thing you need to do, this is number 1, is you got to determine what has that other company actually finished. Right? Even if they don't have the final work product done, you need to figure out, what work have they completed that you've paid for, and you need to try and make that assessment. Now, if they're not talking to you, that can be awkward, that can be difficult, but you can go through some of your phone call logs and your emails, and hopefully you've got some work product for the money that you paid. So that's the very first step, is to assess what do you have in your possession. What is the consultant finish that what work product do you have your hands on? Okay, the second thing is you need to get a letter to that consultant in writing to that giant engineering firm, and that letter or an email that basically needs to ask for their final deliverables and their final invoice, right? And you need to pay them for the work that's been completed. I'm not saying you have to pay them for work they didn't complete, but anyways, you want to try and get closure there. So you want to try and make sure that you get their last bill, get it paid. You don't want a surprise bill showing up a year from now. And you want to try and get whatever final work products they're willing to deliver you. Okay, so that's the second step. I would say before you do that, talk to your new surveyor, and you can kind of review the scope of work for the giant engineering firm, and you can, your new surveyor, if they're a good surveyor, will let you know, hey, here's the deliverables I think you should get from your first consultant before you terminate that contract. Okay, the step number 3, third thing you need to do is work with your new consultant, figure out what needs to be finished, right? So you had some end goal in mind. The giant engineering firm didn't get you all the way there. You need to sit down with your new surveyor and try and figure out, all right, what are the boxes we got to check to be able to meet your ultimate end goal, right? Because it may be, especially if you got, if you didn't get good service from the giant engineering firm, there may be things that got missed or that they didn't tell you about. You want to make sure you identify any potential problems or hangups. Okay, so talk to your new consultant, figure out what work still needs to be done to wrap up the project. And then the final thing, number 4, is sit down with your new surveyor, negotiate fee and schedule. And then when you do that, you need to understand that your new surveyor is likely going to have to charge you for some checking, some double checking or some rework. We get into an issue where I, as a licensed surveyor, I can't, for liability reasons, for legal reasons, I can't just go in and start reusing somebody else's work product. At a minimum, that has to be checked, and in worst case scenario, some of that work may have to be redone, and that's just part of the cost of switching to a new consultant partway through the project. So what are the lessons from this story? Like I said, it's not the only time we've seen this happen. So you hire this giant engineering firm, you hire GEF to come in and take care of your project, and they're not doing a good job. At some point, they become non-responsive. They don't want to meet your needs anymore. The first lesson is it's hard to switch. It's not easy. You can do it. You can switch, but it's a lot easier just to pick a good partner in the beginning. When you choose a design consultant or a boundary surveyor to work on a project like this, it's like getting married. Not quite as permanent, but it's similar in many respects. And getting divorced is expensive and a pain in the neck. So you want to try and pick a good partner from the beginning. The new owner made a decision when they took over the project to basically not work with my firm. I think if they could have avoided some of that. We already had the history of the project. We had already done some survey work at the site. They certainly could have worked with us. If nothing else, they could have put us on contract to work on the transition to the new team, or to handle the land surveying and real estate aspects of their project. And they could have just subbed out the civil to the giant engineering firm, but they chose not to do that, and we respected that choice. But now they're reaping the consequences of that, right? So I tell people all the time, it's a really bad idea to get 3 or 4 different surveyors involved on your project. If you can avoid that, find a good surveyor and let them run the real estate related aspects of your project. That continuity in that relationship is important. And then the other lesson, the second lesson, I think, and I talk about this in some other videos, is you want to hire the right size consultant for your project. And I talk a little bit about, are you do you hire a minnow, a barracuda, or a whale? I tell people Redefined Horizons, we're like a barracuda, right? Like we're gonna eat your project for breakfast, right? But we know we're not the right size for certain types of projects. So for example, we're too large to do lot surveys, residential lot surveys. We are typically too expensive for that. There's retired guys that'll do those for $1,500. So we're too big for that market. And, if you want to build a stadium, we're probably not the right surveying company to help you build a stadium. That's probably going to be too big for us. We're not going to have the bandwidth or the breadth of expertise that you're going to need to build that project. So for us, we do well with medium-sized projects. And so, if you're a consultant, and I just give it to you guys straight, right? If you're a project owner, and your project is, let's say, sub $100,000 or sub $200,000, it's probably not a good idea to hire a giant engineering company. They're not, if your project doesn't have 6 zeros behind it, you are just not going to be on the top of most of the priority list for most large engineering firms, especially multi-state engineering firms. And I think if those companies are honest, they'll tell you that, right? You walk into a giant engineering company, 500-person engineering company with a $40,000 or an $80,000 surveying project, you're not going to be at the top of their priority list. In contrast to that, if you walk into a company that's my size, we're 14 people, 15 people, and you come here with an $80,000 project, that's going to be one of our most important projects for that 3-month period, right? And when you call, you're going to talk to one of the 3 principals. So not only are we going to answer the phone, but you're actually going to talk to an individual that has the authority to make decisions as it relates to your project. So those are a couple important lessons. So hopefully you're never in a situation where you've hired a giant engineering firm to do your work and they won't return your calls. But if you find yourself in that situation, there's 4 tips that'll help you navigate that switch to a consultant that's going to take care of you, provide good service.